Hi everyone, welcome back to Job One for All. In this video, we are going to install the Visual Tool so we can easily create databases and tables. And we are going to also create the database and some tables. So for that, make sure that you have your Docker running. Just make sure that you start Docker. And then in your terminal, just run docker-compose up. And the docker-compose up will have the MySQL server running. And now you just go over your browser, search for Workbench MySQL, click over the first link, and then click download now. And you can click download and just click here, no thanks, just start my download. So since I downloaded already, I will just open and then I'm going to install. I'll install here, just basically next install. So there are several tools. Workbench is just another one. I think it's a pretty decent one. So probably you should see something like this when you first open up. And now we are going to do some changes. In my case here, I need to increase the font size a little bit. Let me see if I can go here to preferences, then fonts, okay, 18. But it looks like it's not possible to change the font size of the editor itself. Okay, yeah, unfortunately it's not possible. So let's create a connection. So the first connection, I'm going to give the name localhost because it's on my computer. Host name, I will leave 127.0.0.1. Username by default is root. We didn't change, but if you go to the documentation, there is a way to create another user when you are setting up the container. In our case, since we didn't do anything, it's root, and the password is also root. So just come back here, click over store in vault, and then root. Okay, that's connection. Successfully made the connection, and then you just press OK. So you should see now this box. Now double click here, and this you either see this or you are going to see the administration. So if you go over the administration and you click over server status, you will see that the server is running. But if you stop the MySQL from the Docker, so basically I'm stopping the container. As you can see, my Docker is up and running, my Docker engine. And if I come here and I click over refresh, it will try to refresh, maybe send some ping, and then we can see that it's completely stopped. So this visual tool, it works either you have the server running or not. Of course, you will not be able to connect and create tables and get the schemas, but of course, you can still use the tool for other things, for example, modeling. Now, that's one of the advantages, since I'm not, for example, let's say we just stopped and I don't want MySQL running on my computer because I don't have enough resources. Basically, just stop the container or stop the Docker engine, and you are with your resources available to your operating system again. Now, Docker compose up because I needed a server. So it is started. Then I will refresh again. And as you can see, my server status is running. Cool. So close the administration. And I'm coming here now back to schemas, as you can see here. And then right click and let's create a schema. So the name of this schema, you have two options. You can create the schema here or just create database anime store. At least this one is easy. We can do it through the editor. So just create database and you click over here. You can see that we created successfully. If you try to run again, it will say, hey, this database already exists. And you don't see it here because you have to right click and then refresh all. And we don't need you. Okay, so for the tables, we are going to have two tables, producer and anime. Now, anime can be produced by only one producer. I know that's not true, but let's say that for sake of simplicity, one anime can only be created by one producer, and one producer can create several enemies. So let's create the first one, that's producer, because it does not have the relationship. So producer and anime, they have a relationship. Producer can produce n or m many relationships, many enemies, and one anime belongs to only one producer. So the key of producer will go to anime. By the way, if you see the screen a little bit different, you can click over here and you have the panels on each side. Okay, so let's create the first one, that's called producer. So right click, create table, and the name will be producer. Producer will have a couple fields. First, you just double click over the column name and type ID. So ID will be a primary key, not null. And you see this AI, auto incremental, I will select this because I want my SQL to manage the ID generation for me. And then I'm going to also create a name. Since I don't know some producer's name, they can be maybe pretty long. Let's give, that's basically string in database terms, varchar, and then 255. That's basically the size. Also not null. So when you select here, you can see that it gets blue. Cool. We have the producer table. You can click over apply. It will give you the SQL, the language used to create tables, and you can copy these and create a script to give to someone else. Then click apply, finish. So as you can see, we already have now one table. So let's close this and let's create another table now. So this table will be called anime. Now, there is a huge fight since forever if you should name your tables singular or plural. Honestly, I think it's a matter of consistency. If you start singular, go singular all the way. If you start with plural names, just go plural all the way. Now, same ID, primary key, not null, alt incremental. Then I will need the name for these enemies. Well, since some enemies recently have some pretty big names. And of course, not null. And I will create another here called episodes. Episodes will be just the number of episodes. So it will be integer, also not null. And then we need the relationship between anime and producer. So I need a key for the producer inside my anime table, because all the animes must belong to a producer. So here we have producer underscore ID. This must match exactly the producer column that we have here, the ID. So if you want to see, you have here that this is integer. So I would just have exactly the same integer. Then same thing, not null, but it's not primary key. So producer ID is a foreign key. Now come back here to the end, click over foreign keys. Then I will tell foreign key name producer ID, reference table, it's a producer. And the column from producer will be ID. No more changes. Let's just click over apply. You can see the SQL, it's a little bit bigger because we have now the constraint, the foreign key. And now, after clicking apply, we should see two tables. One that's anime, and another one that is the producer. So let's delete this one. Okay, so one more thing before we finish this video. You can see here that my anime store is bold, because for some reason it created, it selected as default schema. So usually, if I select here, for example, it should come like this. It should come like anime store, not bold. Because if I try to select everybody from my table anime like this, we would get a problem. Why is that? Because it cannot find the table anime, in this case, in the schema sys. So how can we tell the MySQL to search for that schema. I have two options. One, you give the schema name enemy store.enemy. Then if you press Control Enter, or you just press here over this execute, it will bring kind of all the enemies that are there, but since we don't have any, we have empty. Or you can just set, right click, set as default schema. And then you don't need to pass the name, because by default, this will be added to all your queries. Control Enter, and we have exactly the same result, but 0 rows returned because we don't have any data. So we have now MySQL running. We have our server running. I think it's time for us to maybe get started with some Java code. So let's continue in the next video. Bye.